Hi, my name is Dane Santos, and I did my research on Venezuela, and the theme that I came up with was Venezuela and their tight grip. Venezuela is made up of 31 million people. The median age is 28.3 years old. Their capital is Caracas. Their main religion, which is 96%, which is pretty high, is Roman Catholic. Their unemployment is at 1/4, so 26% of the people there are unemployed, which is pretty high. And then their recent voter turnout, which I thought was interesting, was only 46%. Fun side note is Venezuela was on Trump's travel ban. They have a lot of issues with the government and the use of force. Maduro is their president, and he has been in office since 2013, and the president before that, Hugo Chavez, was in office for 15 years prior to that. Someone actually in August just tried to assassinate Maduro. They were going to use drones and explosives. This is actually one of the most violent countries in the world, and most of that comes actually from the government. And they are a federal presidential republic. So when it comes down to media, honestly, the U.S. doesn't see much of Venezuelan media, and I think that's because Venezuela doesn't put such a high. They don't make their media such a big deal. It doesn't seem to. Their government doesn't seem to care if they come out with a lot of good movies or come out with a lot of big actors or good music or artists. So some of the big movies that I found were The Motorcycle Diaries, The Liberator, and Hermano. Hermano was the only one that I think got recognized by Sundance Films. Big TV was El Comandante and Bienvenidos. Big music was Los Amigos Invisibles, Guaco, and King Chango. The only big name that I can find is Edgar Martinez. I don't know what movies he's played in, but I know I've seen him in a few. And then artists are Carlos Cruz Diaz, Jesus Rafael Soto, and Alejandro Otero. As you know, you probably haven't heard of much of those just because I think there's so many other countries that put a high emphasis on making good media, and I don't think Venezuela cares that much because they have a lot more on their plate. So, media usage: 54.4% of they use 54% of them use social media, and their highest is Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Now, compared to the U.S. uses 77% of us use social media, and the highest is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. So the difference that I think there is, one, I noticed that they use YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, whereas YouTube wasn't really on our top, and we put more of an emphasis on Instagram and Snapchat. And I think that's because we're more looking for entertainment, whereas they're actually looking for news. This is really the only place that they can get true news from. So I think that's why they use it the most. I think that more of them would use social media if they could afford it. If you're looking at someone who's unemployed, that's 1/4 of their country, and I would say that probably that 1/4 doesn't get a good chance of looking at any social media. So that's really hard for them to be able to find the truth. Venezuelans know that their media is being censored, so they rely on social media the most to get their news. They actually go out and will go to coffee shops or whatever and try and get on a computer or get a phone or anything that they can do to really see what's going on, whereas we can just turn on the TV and see the actual news and not be worried about our government censoring it. They put heavy fines on private media sources in their country, and they have to air live government broadcasts. So why would anyone want to be private? Because they're just going to get fined through the roof. And even if they are private, they have to allow the government broadcast whenever, and apparently they're random. So if someone doesn't like what's being aired, they can just do a government broadcast in the middle of the time that they don't want what is being aired. They are big also on online censorship and surveillance. So this is the great thing about YouTube and Facebook and Twitter is it's really hard to censor that kind of stuff because it's a social media platform. So because of that, that's where a lot of people go. They probably won't go to, a Venezuelan internet source because who knows what they're reading and who knows what the real truth is. But with the other social media, they can find, the truth. The people have to use outside sources to find out what is really going on, and this is very different than in the U.S. In the U.S., we don't have to worry about that at all. So, I mean, those are the big differences. And so the government sees the media as an outlet to either overthrow the government or to make the government look really good. This is me getting into, what the government sees about their media and how they want to use it. They align with the authoritarian theory when we were looking at the four theories of media. They censor what is going on in and out. They censor what is going in and out so they can dictate what their people are going to hear. They do this because the government wants as much power as possible to keep things running the way that they want it to. They don't want their people to know that they are really screwing them over in the long run and aren't the best country on the planet. Since Hugo Chavez, international media has gone down because they don't want their citizens concerned with the outside world, because that brings questions they don't want to answer or don't have the answer to. There have been tons of riots to the information that people are getting through social media, and this is exactly what they don't want. So I'm sure social media has been really throwing them a curveball, and that they weren't expecting that people will get the information they were going to be getting. So then now we're going to look in the World Press Index. They are ranked 143 with the title Ever More Authoritarian, and I couldn't agree more. Most private journalists are threatened, beat, or detained. Maduro does his best to keep the private media quiet and keep his news coverages under control. Things have gotten way worse since the economic crisis in 2016, and police are the main source of violence now towards journalists. And I think that this is crazy just because I live in such a free country like the United States. I learned a lot during this project, and what I learned was one, will never go to Venezuela, and two, that I'm so glad that our media is the way that it is, and that we're not censored or we're not surveillance, and we're not forced to read what the government wants, because then it gives people a choice. And obviously, because of all the riots, the Venezuelan people want a choice, but they aren't given that choice because the government has too much power over them. So I think what we can learn most is that, there needs to be checks and balances, and the government can't have too much power, especially when it comes to media. Thank you.